Today's guest is a ghost hunter, demon hunter, and UFO investigator. With over 50 years of experience, he is well versed in most things paranormal and has incredible insights into the big topics, Bigfoot and demons amongst them. Please give a massive Koit welcome to Joe Stewart. Hello Joe, welcome to KoitCast.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here, so much appreciated for coming on. I suppose I'll start with the first question is, what brought you into the paranormal sphere? What's your origin story?
Basically, I had an interest since I was about 7 years old, and I got into the cryptid back in 1968 when I was hunting with my father, and I had my first sighting of one. And that time, nobody knew anything about them. That was before the Patterson stuff came out, and so that kind of really intrigued me, and I wanted to know what it was. So I ended up spending most of my life hunting it down and trying to understand it. That's how it came about.
No, fair play. So you obviously alluded to an encounter. Can you tell us the story of that encounter, if you don't mind?
Yes, it was. I'm a deer hunter. I've been in the woods. My father took me out since I was about 5 years old, and so we were hunting white-tailed deer. We're bow hunters, and
Mm-hmm.
October is the season. So I was out. It was towards getting towards dusk, and my father and his friends were up at the cabin, and I was out hunting on my own. And I happened to see some movement across the field by the edge of the woods, and that's when first I thought there was a bear over there. And then as I looked closer, I could see it was something very tall that was hiding behind a tree and peeking around the tree on occasion. And when I saw it, at first I thought it looked kind of like an ape, like a gorilla or
Mm-hmm.
something. My first thought was maybe something escaped from a zoo.
Mm.
But there was no zoos up in the area. It's very much a lot of Indian land up there, and just wilderness and swamp. And so then I watched it, and trying to see how tall it was and just getting some references. And then it just kind of moved back behind the tree, and then it disappeared. So I assumed it just walked away in line, the tree in line between me and it, so I couldn't see it, go away.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I kept it to myself because I didn't know what it was, didn't know what to say about it. And then as times went on through the years, as a hunter, I was always looking for signs of it and trying to understand what it was. And that kind of how it all started. I
So
wasn't
obviously,
afraid or anything because I didn't know what it was at
sure.
that
So you,
time.
you, you saw it alone, essentially. Your dad
Yeah, so I
didn't
was by
see it.
myself. Yeah.
Okay. That's a shame, isn't it, in that respect that you didn't have some measure of corroboration, but at least it sparked that interest in you.
Yes,
Yes. Now, I
very much
read
so.
from your bio. I'm going to read this out verbatim because I think this is worth mentioning. Um, Joe's formula is simple: pick the object to research, read all he can on the subject, then go out into the world searching for it. If he finds it, observe it, document it, analyze it, and draw a conclusion from the data. Now, obviously, I love that approach because I'm well into science and that sort of approach, which means the investigation remains grounded. So, my question would be, why this approach for you rather than just tearing off after it? Why the scientific approach?
Well, because I always had an interest like you in science. And when I was in school and college, I studied science, learned the scientific method. So it just taught me how to think and how to approach something like
Hmm.
that, how to find out how do I study something like that, especially something as elusive as that is. So that's how I approach anything I do now is that way.
Excellent. Well, I wish a lot more people would do it that way rather than just presenting stuff without any, facts and figures to back it up. And I love that. So well played. Now, can we talk about a hunt? Because I believe across the years you've done hunts for Bigfoot. Um,
Yes.
what is the process, if you will, of going on a hunt? If you could just talk us through one from planning stage right through.
Okay. Initially, the problem is it's very elusive. Okay. And the only reason I could think for that at the time was that it fears mankind. Okay.
Hmm.
So being a hunter, I had a lot of evidence over the years to prove that one of their main staples food was the white-tailed deer here in Michigan. So then I thought that, well, I hunt whitetail too. What do we have in common? We have in common the behavior of the white-tailed deer. So how I approach it based upon its behavior, the Sasquatch is going to do the same thing. So I figured if I could match up that behavior, that I had more of an opportunity to run into one or find evidence of one in that particular area. And now the only differences are that at that time is I'm a bow hunter, so my strategies of hunt are within a certain range that I have to be, certain types of clearing that I have to use a bow. If I'm a
Sure.
gun hunter, I could be much further away. The Sasquatch hunts by ambush, literally gets their hands on it like a deer, it would break its neck and then haul it away. So they had to be much closer, which means that they would hunt the game trails because the deer are familiar with the game trails, and if they something frightens them, they'll run the game trail back to where they originated from. So very predictable. And that's exactly what they did. So over the years, that got me into areas where they were, and I started learning their signs, knew when they were in the area, what they required in their habitats. That all came with time as I, ran across them. And my evidence would be like mostly like I find footprints or something of that nature would let me know, like, yeah, I'm right, they are in this area. And
Mm.
also too, there's hunters and locals that would have sightings of it, and I would talk to those people, and they give me information, and just kind of build from there.
It's an interesting one. That I had some quality questions halfway through you talking there about that, but I've literally just forgot them in the meantime. But I will remember them. Don't you worry. But what I do like is the fact you said it's an ambush hunter, and a lot of people probably won't think of how Bigfoot consumes food because they just think it does it exist, does it not, and they're not thinking of all the realities of life for that creature. Um, so, is there any evidence? This is probably one of my questions for it being an ambush hunter versus using primitive tools.
Yes, the only time, well, let's see. And basically, what I determine is they're omnivores. Okay, so they eat meat, they'll eat, but their main staple is meat. They usually have to have their meat. Um, they I've hunted in other states where they were hunting the wild boar, the Russian boars in Tennessee, and I found footprints where there was these ledges off from the side of a mountain just above a path. It's a little bit too small for like a hunter to be with a bow or a gun. You just didn't have enough
Mm-hmm.
room to maneuver. And there was literally bushes that ripped up by the roots and placed up against that wall where something could stand behind it and ambush, like a pig going down the the path down into the valley. Um, I have been in areas where they've literally have built what you could call blinds that
Yeah.
they have put together, and again, it's right near a trail where something comes through. I have seen where they have actually literally pushed over a tree to, this was an area that was a little bit more open, and they were using, there wasn't much in tree coverage for ambush. So what they would do is they pushed a tree over to force them to leave the trail and move closer to the areas where there were trees for ambush. And then that's where they would take them out because they were going down to their water
Mm.
source. So yeah, that's very much what. Now the other thing that you do is where I guess you could consider it like a tool, is when they were hunting like turkey, and what they would use is a rock. Now the Native Americans used to use rocks to get birds around the ground, hit them with the rocks that stun them or kill them.
Mm.
Same thing, and normally it disables them in some way and manner. And what I had found in a couple instances where it literally ripped one of the wings right off a turkey, just pulled it right out, like about a 25, 30
Crikey.
pound turkey. Yeah. The deer, they'll sometimes will grab the legs and they'll rotate it and break the leg so they can't run, or they'll slam them against a tree if they get a hold of them. And they also project infrasound, which is below 20 hertz, and that's a very disorientating uh, sensation when you're exposed to it. It's kind of like I don't know if you guys over there in England, you get we used to call them boom boxes. They
Hmm.
got a lot of vibration going. You can feel it
Yes.
in your chest,
Yeah. Yeah.
like a wind blowing. That's infrasound, and a lot of animals use it for hunting, like tigers do. Elephants have it. And what it does, it disorientates the animal. When they give out this scream at this frequency, if it disorientates them, which makes them easy to get a hold of and kill. So yeah, that's their technique. They don't use anything I've never seen him construct anything that would be considered a weapon like a spear or a bow,
Yeah, that's what I was
anything like that.
thinking.
No, no.
Now, obviously, you've said something interesting, which I actually haven't heard before. That is the infrasound thing. Do we have that on tape?
Yeah, I got recordings. You can, I mean, you can't hear it, but if you look at the spectrogram, you can
Yeah.
see that's low frequency. Animals can react to it, will react to it before we will. Yeah.
And what is there out there that also could cause infrasound? Just to be play devil's advocate to say that it might not
Uh,
be a Sasquatch.
oh, let's see. Some of the animals in nature, tigers, like I said, elephants, use it for communication. I can't think of
But
anything else.
nothing where
I
you
know
were
there's
going
more
on
than
hunts though.
what's that?
But nothing where you would be going on hunts. Obviously, there ain't going to be an elephant or tiger in Michigan, presumably
No,
out in the
no,
wild.
no. I mean, I've been exposed to infrasound blast when it gave a yell, and it was like standing in a light breeze. Your clothes were actually fluttering from the, and you could feel it in your chest.
Mm.
So you can definitely feel it.
Okay. Now you said also, obviously, getting back to the ambush technique. If
Yeah,
they're an ambush killer, which is what you're suggesting, that would
yeah,
also go a long way to explain why people don't see them that often because they're busy, aren't they? Keeping out of the way, hiding, making sure they're non-visible
that's
to
very
their
true.
prey and or threats. So that's an interesting thought. Now going back to when you first saw that creature, when you
Mhm.
were, did you say 5?
I was 14.
Oh, sorry, 14. Um, what was going through you in terms of both thoughts and feelings?
Just trying to identify what it was. I mean, immediately went to bear because it was big,
Mm,
and then I said, no, I can't be bear. It just doesn't move like a bear. So, I didn't know how to classify it. I was just kind of trying to figure out what it was, and it was getting dusk, about 200 yards out, so I could make it out, but not in great detail. But later on, when I went back and kind of saw where the top of the head was, went and measured, it was around 8 feet tall. I don't know anything in the woods that's that tall.
no, sure.
We don't have
Did
grizz. We have black bear, and they're not that tall.
Yeah. Did you see its eyes, or was it just the shape of a head?
Yeah, the eyes are. It was very difficult to distinguish the eyes at that time. I remember it had eyes, but I couldn't see anything, nothing like colors or anything like that. It was
Sure.
just
But did
dark.
you think it had its eyes on you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh
Hmm.
yeah. That's probably what caught my attention to that and all of a sudden seeing motion. Because when you hunt, you don't hunt by sight, you hunt by motion.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, did you get that feeling when people are watching you and you have the hairs on the back of your neck, etc. Did you have
Mhm.
that associated with it, or was it just the logical? What the hell is that?
It's illogical. What the hell was that? I
Hmm.
didn't have any sense of it until like my attention came to it.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. Let's get back to evidence, or at least go through the whole evidence shenanigans. So you found, obviously blinds. You found other working, shall we say, of what you would suspect Bigfoot to do to ambush its prey. You've got plaster cast, presumably, have you, of feet or anything? Is there hair? Is there scat?
Yeah, let me. These are from a couple years ago. These are juveniles. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep, I
That's a
can.
youngster, very, very young. That's about 4.5 inches by about 2 inches wide.
Uh huh.
And then this is a little bit older. You can see that.
Yeah, I can indeed. Yeah,
Okay. So that'd be probably along the lines of what you consider a teenager.
sure.
Then that was traveling with this young one. And then here's a larger one.
That's
Let's
him.
see.
Yeah,
You can see much, much larger, about 5 inches across here. And
yeah.
the interesting things about these are a lot of times the toes are, you can see them. They're not necessarily, well, let me go to the other one here. You see a little bit better. And this is very normal that you see how it almost looks like pods and pea pods,
Yeah.
kind of like and,
Mm-hmm.
and but in actuality, they curl their toes when they walk, like they grip with their toes when they walk, and that's that curling sensation. But they actually do; these toes do stretch out. So I've had some other castings where I don't have them with me, but where the toes are stretched out. than what they are here. It's just the way they walk. The other thing is they don't really have a ball of the foot like we do. We
Yeah.
balance on the ball of the foot. And right here, and this is not a very good cast. I'm not very good at casting. I didn't get it very good, but this is just all flat here. Okay. We have a longitudinal arch. So if you like seeing your feet like on wet pavement, you got that big gap next
Yes.
to you. Okay. On the inside of the foot. They don't have that. They don't have a longitudinal arch. But I got a metatarsal right here that literally it hinges on that. Because besides being bipeds, they're also quadrupeds. They can do it either way.
Oh
And
wow.
then the weight is on the heel, not the ball of the foot like it is
Yeah,
with
yeah.
us. So that's the difference.
Wow. See, I thought the whole thing, other than the toes, was just like a big pad so it could spread the weight that way. But that's interesting. I've not heard that before either, right? That you've got the hinge part in the middle as well.
Yeah, because you look at them. I can't show you the hand
Sure.
prints. I don't. I have it on pictures, but I don't have anything to show you here. Uh, the hand prints are. If you took a human hand, the thumb is down more like that. They're
Okay.
very thick and they're very short, and they have large knuckles, and they can literally run on their knuckles, and their arms are long enough because they get on past the knees. And the head doesn't sit like ours, it's actually down like a gorilla on the chest, so they can look forward as they move along straight ahead. So they're basically built to go biped or quadruped, and they can go just as fast as a quadruped as a biped.
So on this basis, you've got casts of hands, right? We've got casts of feet, and I know you're not alone. There's many, many hunters out there, and investigators that will have these things.
Yes.
So why the summation of all that evidence? Yeah, why is that not enough to say he exists?
Well, for science, it's not enough. They basically want a body, or at least their genetics, to say for sure that they exist. But um, I don't know. I mean, most people that's enough. But I mean, people could fake things, but if you really know what you're looking for, you can tell a fake from real ones. So I don't know. It's just I don't know. I'd ask you the same question. Is that enough for you? The having all that?
It certainly piques enough interest in me to say, look, it's got to be something there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I find it odd when people say, no, he doesn't exist, otherwise we'd have a body by now. But then you know how big the world is, so things can
Yeah.
hide. The next question will be, obviously, I want to still talk about hair and DNA. We'll come back to that in a sec. But you piqued my interest in respect of how its head sits and stuff. So what is the nearest primate that we have that you would say that Bigfoot runs alongside? Is it more gorilla? Is it more orangutan? What is it, do you think?
Orangutan. That's what it's
Okay.
more like.
And is it more orangey, sort of hairish or
Yes,
interesting?
the Native Americans up here in Michigan call him the red man because
Ah,
they have that color. But they do have other colors. They do gray out when they get older. There are some that are black, so there is some variances, but basically it's red in color.
wow.
Actually, I had a videotape of one on a game camera, and with that, you would swear that it was an orangutan that moved its arm in front of the camera. That's how close it looks to that. So
Interesting.
very similar.
Wow. Now, obviously, with that hair, it gets me back to the hair question. I've heard before that we've got hair and it's been tested, but because there's no database to test it against, you can't prove that it is or isn't a Bigfoot. Is that still the case?
I would think, well, most time the case is that really it's very difficult to get anybody to look at the stuff, and it's very expensive. It's not as expensive as it used to be, but still to spend the time and the money to do all the variety of tests that they do. I mean, they've gotten it now. They got a lot of machines today that do what used to be labor intensive as far as sequencing the DNA,
Mm-hmm.
and we're a lot further along than we are now. But basically, it's getting the people to do it, and then I would say it'd have to be at university level because you got to have those types of tests and expertise to take it even further. Looking for the comparing it to the gene pool that they have, where it basically all the species that they know is all in that they can compare to, and then if it doesn't uh, fall in place there, that gives us an indication that okay, we got a new species here.
Hmm.
and then what else, is a part of, so it's that's really, I think, the way we need to go. But it's very, very difficult to, I mean, if you're out in the wilderness and you have Sasquatch activity, let's say, and you find some hair on a fence or something, you don't really know if it's Sasquatch or not. I mean,
No,
it's
of course, yeah,
possible. In most cases, it's not. It's horse or something else, that was in the area,
yeah.
so, and it's always that thing. Well, if I didn't see it, leave it. How I know that it's Sasquatch here? You always got that kind of problem too. So
Have
it's a
you
very
gone through that
difficult thing.
process? Have you gone through that process that where you saw hair and thought, well, it might be, so I'll get it, or do you think I
Well,
can't really do it?
actually, over the years, I have found what are called active habitats. So they're actually there, and I actually do like an exchange with them, like up in the upper north, from where I am. I actually, it's almost like the Indians. I would leave things like some sort of a food, a candy bar, something like that. And then in return, I would get pieces of birch, or I would get, now, not mind you, this is like several miles inside a swamp is where this is
Hmm.
taking place. There's nobody out there.
Yeah.
And unless you leave something out for a long period of time, you're not going to have things like raccoons or something like that around doing it. They conjugate where they know for sure that there's food. And in a wilderness like that, it's very, very vast. And so in this case, I would set up hair traps where I would be able to pull the hair from them, allegedly. And then what you would do is you find out that cuticles of hair, which is the scaly part of the hair,
Yeah.
the exterior of the hair, that is actually species specific. And so what I've done is I took that hair as an alleged possible, specimen X, and I would cast that hair, and that would give me an image you could see under a microscope and I took pictures of it like at 400 power, and then I would get hairs from everything that's in that environment, raccoons, possums, humans, dogs, cats, everything. There's data banks where you can get those pictures from, and then you do a comparison. And if it doesn't compare to any of those, likelihood is that you probably got some Sasquatch hair
Hmm.
at
It's like
that
the
point.
Sherlock Holmes method, isn't it?
Yeah.
The old
Well,
deduction rather than the getting. It's the opposite
yeah.
way. No, I
You
like
just
that.
don't know.
And what about scat then? Do we have anything that we could consider potential Bigfoot poo, essentially?
Well, scat is basically evidence. You talking about feces like that?
Yes, yes.
I have seen something I was very suspicious of, but I never collected it because there was no way to test it or know,
Hmm.
other than, you could cut into it and see what it's eating, that type of thing. And I remember the color was kind of almost like along lines of a yellowish tint to it, the feces that I had seen. And I found
It
it
was a
in two
baby one then,
locations.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely a smaller one. And, and you look at about maybe 20 miles apart where I found the same thing where I did have Squatch activity in there as well. So, but no, I've never been able to have anybody to test it.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't recommend putting it in any kind of storage.
No, you wouldn't want to be carrying that around with you anyway. But um, I was thinking of something else. Now, obviously, you mentioned about potential trading. That's
Yes.
an interesting concept in itself because it's telling you that the animal has a concept of trade, which animals don't tend to have. So, what does that tell you about if Bigfoot is 100% real? Where does it sit? Orangutan versus humans? Is it just an orangutan, but say, I don't know, 1,000 years more on? Where do you think it sits?
Well, where I think it sits, best I could, I mean, the closest thing we have to that of the fossil record is the Gigantopithecus
Hmm.
that died out about 3,000 years ago. Now they did, I just some recent papers out of Cambridge where they were doing some protein testing in Gigantopithecus molars that they had recovered from
Hmm.
China. And what they found out that it actually was a divergence from the orangutan, the Gigantopithecus. And the orangutan, the Sumatra ones, I think are the biggest ones. I mean, they stretch out like anywhere from over 6 feet tall if you stood them up. And so these Gigantopithecus, they found out, did originate from that. There's evidence to point to that now. My thought is that the Sasquatch is a continuation of that, maybe another divergence from the Gigantopithecus. And the interesting thing is the Gigantopithecus, a lot found in China and India, those areas. What do they have in there? The Himalayas. What's in the Himalayas? The Yeti.
Yeti, yeah.
So there is some sort of fossil record to that extent. So it's very possible that maybe the Yetis, the Gigantopithecus never died out, still continued, and that's what they're seeing then. Or it's just some version of the Sasquatch. I don't know, but most likely that's what I think it came from. So it is not a Homo genus like us.
Yeah.
Or it is actually, I think, a pongo, which would be the orangutan.
Okay.
That's what it originates from. But it's highly intelligent. You hear people about game cameras, and I don't know if you ever heard, but they don't like cameras. They'll destroy cameras on trees in the field. Well, if I have a camera out there, deer don't know what it is. A bear doesn't know what it is, but a Sasquatch knows what it is. So it's very, very intelligent.
It's also interesting because aren't all game cameras for the most part, are camouflaged, are they not?
Yes.
So how does it know where they are unless it's watching you put them out there?
Well, it's camouflage, but I mean, you can still see them. You can see the straps, and as far as the deer and that, they don't see them. The bear don't see them. But even if they did, they wouldn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, they see them, and not only that, but there is electronics involved, infrared lighting, and all that kind of stuff that they may be able to hear.
That's true.
We don't hear it, but they could hear
Didn't think
it.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it might annoy them, and they think, well, I had enough of that.
Yeah, because what I used to use a lot of times when I was camping in a very active area, I used to have a Vietnam vet friend that was he was special forces, and he showed me how to lay these wires, trip wires, around the area at a certain level that I would give me warning that something was coming into camp.
Sure.
And I would set up those kinds of perimeters, and it worked pretty good. Like
what,
little
for
bells and
Bigfoot
stuff.
or just for deer? Do you mean?
Well, yeah, I mean anything could come through, but it was mainly set up for Bigfoot in that area, the particular area that it came in from, and it would usually. One time we heard it like ringing, and what we thought was an excessive amount of ringing, like what the hell, somebody playing with a bell, and then it dawned us that's where that camera is. So we went back to the camera was on the main trail and found it where it was hit so hard it knocked the SD card out, knocked all the batteries out of it, and broke the door to it. So that was the purpose of it was don't hang these cameras up. I mean, that's the way I interpret it.
And how was it damaged? Was it damaged by a rock, by a branch, by its hand? Is there a way of saying
it was
just literally hit it?
It swiped it around the tree. Yeah, it literally loosened the belt and swung it around the tree.
Jeez,
it was hit so hard.
Wow. Now, obviously, with cameras, what have you caught with cameras? Be that still or video? Have you got anything that you could say?
Yeah,
that's obviously Bigfoot.
I've caught part of a shoulder where you can see the hair. It looks very much like an orangutan. I've actually got video, very brief video, where it is reaching over a game camera and you can see the arm and the hair from the arm as it moved over. I have video where it literally took the camera off the tree, but avoided being on, where it's full faced on it. You could see bits and pieces of it. And you watch it as it's being set down on the ground and then covered with leaves. And all the bands and everything that we held at the tree, all that was gone.
Wow. So now, is that online anywhere? Is that online so I could link to it or send people that way?
I could send it to you that you could link it up yourself if you want.
If you don't mind, yeah, and I could even embed it in this video, like, just pause at this point and show it, because that would be highly interesting to see.
Sure.
All right, well, we'll discuss that after then. Thank you for that. Do you think that's your best evidence, is that video, or is it your plaster cast? What is it for you?
I think my best evidence is hair. And I had sent hair to the University of Cambridge in England. I have a gentleman there that is looking at it, but unfortunately at this point they've had it for over a year and they've yet to do anything with it.
Oh.
What they're looking for basically is collagen, like hair, nails, that type of thing. That
Hmm.
give you better results. But hair is keratin, so they're going to try some new process to extract the DNA. Now, I did send some DNA over that was saliva, but the thing with the saliva was, how do I capture saliva? I mean, Squatch is not going to stand there and let me swab his mouth, you
Why
know.
not? Are you not tall enough to
He
reach? Is
probably
that what it
would,
is?
but I wouldn't be around to do anything with it. So, anyways, so what I did is I got these plums, very juicy plums, and hoping that they would suck on and spit the pits out. And that's what they
Nice.
did. So I collected about 9 of those. I went through a whole forensics thing as far as collecting it, swabbing them, storing them in 91% propanol, send it over there. The testing that they did, and I didn't even think of this, was that it was inundated with the plum DNA. So there was a lot of DNA from plum, which was overbearing to the any other DNA that was there. Because you also have bacteria DNA, other things like insect DNA also that could be in there.
Hmm.
And there was detected human DNA, but they didn't know if it meant that it was actually human DNA or human-like DNA, because there was no way for the test to actually bring that out. So basically, don't try to collect saliva using anything that has its own DNA. You have to find
Yeah.
another method,
If I'm
and
ever out
we're working on
collecting,
that.
if I'm ever out collecting saliva, I won't use a plum. You got to use that method from the movies where you take a glass and get them to kiss it. You know, like the woman's lipstick's always on it. That's the best method. All right, so the hair is what you bank
Yeah,
on
right now,
essentially to prove
right
it.
now.
Now, obviously, we're talking about your evidence. What do you think the best evidence out there is in the wide world for it? Is it the Patterson Gimlin film? Is it what is it?
Well, apparently it's not, because there's still doubts with that. I mean, it's been
Hmm.
studied and it's been shown that it is real, but you have those people out there that still won't believe it no matter what you do. No amount of evidence is ever going to convince them.
Oh, that's the same people with the UFOs before the government admit it.
Yeah, don't
Similar.
get me started on that.
I'm going to later on. I'm going to ask you about that. But you think that Patterson and Gimlin is real?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I
I
do
mean,
as well,
first of
by the
all,
way.
it's a female. It's a female.
Hmm.
Who in the hell would think about doing a female outfit if you're faking it to begin with? And it just the way it moved. They did studies of it, and they said that humans could not really move that way if you study the motion. They did all that in laboratory many years ago. So yeah, I think it's a real representation of it. And you notice too that instead of when it's moving, it didn't like you would do. You turn your head, you would look at something. It turns the whole body because it doesn't have a neck like we have. Some are
Mm.
like the gorilla, so it has to turn that way. So yeah, it. I think it's real. Yeah.
No, I do too. There's so many people, like you say, out there trying to debunk it. I don't know why they're so heavily invested in debunking it specifically. You know, it's almost as if the loud debunk voices have to be there. I don't get it. I would, if it were me, I'd err on the side of positivity until disproven. You can't disprove it just by saying no, it's fake. You know.
I don't know. Maybe it's unsettling to some in certain
Mm.
ways. I mean, if I've been in areas up in Michigan where there was very heavy activity of Sasquatch, and the conservation officers knew it existed in there. I've had them telling me off unofficially that they do exist, and they will shut down areas and say, "Oh, well, the eagles are nesting in this area, so we don't want anybody in there for the next year or two." When that isn't the case at all. There's a Sasquatches in there, and they were trying to keep people separated from it. So I see that a lot.
Yeah, I've heard those stories as well, and there's no smoke without fire. You know, it's got to be true. They're not, you know, those rangers aren't just going to willy nilly close things down. You know,
Right,
it's for a
right,
reason. So I'm heavily
right.
invested in the reality of it. You know, short of having a body, how else can we do it? Because you've collected all the plaster casts, you got hair. What else can you do?
As for me, not much else. I mean, even if you videotape things and that, there'll still be people that say, "No, no, you faked it."
Exactly.
That's like the funny thing I always got about UFOs. Back in the day we used film, and they said, "Well, you couldn't fake film and stuff like that." And then we're in the digital age, and I could really fake stuff. Says, "Well, the only really good stuff is the stuff that was taken by film." Wait a minute, back then you said it was, so you can't
Yeah.
win.
You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Now, on the evidence scenario, is there some measure of world database relating to it? You know, in a similar way that there is with MUFON.
No, that's more of a, I mean, there are some organizations like BFRO that basically collects data. I don't know what they do with it. Um, Other than just some television shows that are on, I don't know of anything other than BFRO that's any kind of organization that you can at least leave your reports to, like with MUFON,
Hmm.
leave reports of UFO sightings. And then they usually send investigators out to look and investigate, get as much information as they can. Because a lot of times it's just accidental stuff. It's just people walk along, don't even thinking about it, and they accidentally run into one. That's usually how a lot of it happens.
Hmm. How many reports roughly do you think there are per, like, let's just go with a month or a year? How many is it, do you think?
Well, it depends on, they're all through the United States, they're all through the
Hmm.
world. Um, I can't think of really any place other than Hawaii. I've never heard any sightings out of there, but I would say there's probably maybe thousands. You know,
Hmm.
really, if you take it worldwide, I mean, a lot of it's not reported. Some of it's part of their culture. They recognize it, or like here, the Native Americans, they see it, but they don't talk about it because they're afraid that it will bring them to them by, calling out their name or discussing them. So they never discuss it at all.
Hmm.
So it just
No.
depends on the culture now. But I think there's quite a few,
Yeah. So
especially
obviously,
now because we are encroaching more on the wilderness now. We're building more in the infrastructure.
hmm.
So we're having more and more encounters with them. And the other thing to know about them, you can imagine what a massive animal that can be anywhere from 800 to 1,200 pounds. Okay. Anywhere as I've been as high as 12 feet tall, anywhere from 7 to 12 feet tall. You can imagine the calories that thing's got to run on.
Hmm.
So do you think it'd be running through heavy bush and stuff going through the wilderness? No, it's going to walk riverbeds. It's going to walk creeks. It's going to walk roads. So you have more likely chance of seeing them because that's how they travel because they can't waste that energy going through things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, which brings me on to the next part. If they're omnivores, right?
Yes.
Um, is and obviously there's patches of berries and stuff out in the wild, and a
Yep.
lot of berry patches will have spikes on and stuff. Is there, is there hair left around those sort of briar patches and things?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. And our areas where I've been looking, it's mostly blueberries. They're on the ground, mostly up there through a lot of different fruits and stuff. But sure, there's always that possibility. But how do you know that it's a Sasquatch?
That's
If
true.
you've been handled the hair a lot, uh, you can get a pretty good idea that it probably might be. But I'd have to go under the microscope. You know, I'd have to make a casting of the hair and stuff to look at it to see if it looked like what I've seen as a Sasquatch pattern. Other than that, but yeah, sure there would be. It'd
Cool,
be
cool.
here.
Now, where is Bigfoot most likely to reside in the world? Now, obviously, we got the reports from China. We've even got the, what is it, the Yowie in Australia. Do
Yes,
you think it's in all these places? Hence,
yes.
why the stories? All right, so stop there then. It literally
It's
is. You think
global. It's
everywhere.
global, and it's got long history too. Excuse me. It's goes back hundreds of years. In the United States, all the sightings back in the old days, they called them the wild man stories, but they were talking about Sasquatch.
Hmm. Now, let's push this a bit further. What sort of creature is it? From your research, do you think it is flesh and blood or is it something else? Because there is that line of thinking.
It is flesh and blood. I believe it is an ape. It's a pongo, but an intelligent ape, possibly on the level of our intelligence. I'm not talking about technology.
Sure, sure.
I'm talking about language, family structures. They're very nomadic in their because they're hunter gatherers. They're nomadic. So yeah, that's what I look at it as on the pongo side, not the homo side. It's not an extension of man. That's not to say DNA wise, it could be like maybe close to like what the chimp and the bonobo is, which is like in the 98th percentile, as far as
Hmm.
the DNA is. But the thing people got to understand is that 98%, that's based on the DNA that builds protein. There's a small percentage that has to do with the mutations and what makes us different, look different than like from a chimp or a bonobo or an orangutan, all that. is in that percentage. That's not what they're looking at. They're just comparing it to the protein piece of it. So I would
Hmm.
expect if we had some DNA from a Sasquatch, it would probably be in that area, 98, 99% human in the protein sense, but different in other ways.
In the
And
other
it would
bit, yeah.
also, the phylogeny would show that it was tied to the orangutan. I would bet anything that there's going to be orangutan DNA in there.
Hmm. I've been told before that if you analyze my DNA structure, etc., I'm mostly banana, you know, and then the 3% of me is me, but mostly banana. It's weird how that sort of stuff works.
Bananas are, popular.
Not for me. I don't like bananas, but hey ho. Right. Okay. So let's go further on from this. Obviously, you're hardcore into the fact it's a flesh and blood creature, and if I had my way, I would think exactly the same thing. By the way, let's branch slightly off from there, which is you mentioned language.
Yep.
I've heard the mumbling effects because I've heard that on coast to coast radio or whatever before, where they've had people recording and they go like that sort of thing. Um, do you have recordings like that of them?
Yep. I had them on some videos. Used to do these vlogs, camp videos, and I had some on there. Um, I do have some recordings from mid Michigan where you can hear the best way I can describe it when the male talks, it sounds like Klingon. That's what it reminds me of when I hear it. And I've heard it in the wilderness many times. And when I was doing hunts at night. And so, yeah, I think I got a couple that have that in there when there were, it was coyotes involved because they do, coyotes will follow when they hunt. They will hunt with coyotes. I've seen that happen in several states. So, but yeah, they have language.
Now, do you think that is? Oh, sorry, let's go back. Has that been investigated by linguists? These sounds, and is there like a pattern been found in it, so we could say almost that is a word or that is a sentence structure? Is there anything like that?
Well, there is a man, I think it was with the Navy, I don't know his name, that had listened to some of the stuff and stated that he thought that it definitely was a language from what he was listening to. Because we have those Sierra tapes that have a lot of the talking and stuff from that. And I think that's what he was listening to. So he seemed to think there was a language there.
Excellent. And if you've got some of that recording, would you mind sharing that with me as well?
Yeah,
If it's easily obtainable.
I think I got some on my phone. I'll see if
Well,
that's
just see if
got
you can get a
exactly what.
file and send it. If
Yeah,
not,
I'll send you.
so be it.
Okay, but let me make a list now.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be ace.
All right.
It's just nice to present it to people so that they,
Sure.
when you're just talking about it.
So we wanted the sounds and we wanted
The
the
video, if you,
pictures
yeah, that'd be
and
ace.
some video, all that stuff. Okay. Okay.
Now, here's a question that my girlfriend wanted to know. Because she watched a program or listened to a podcast on Yetis not long back, and she said,
Mhm.
"Do you think that local indigenous populations protect them so that it can't be found by Western man, so to speak?"
Well, they don't need us to do that. They do very well on their own. I mean, if you think of something as extremely intelligent as they are, and their spatial orientation is very acute. I've had them so close to me, I could reach out and touch them, didn't know they were there. That's how stealthy they are. When you move through the wilderness, you look usually straight ahead as you're walking. They know your line of sight. They can get up in the trees or they'll be laying on the ground. They're not necessarily standing up, so you're never in your line of vision, you know. So no, I don't think anybody protects them per se. I would say they respect them, like the Native Americans. They will give them their space and respect their area and stuff, and won't go in there. But uh, nobody's actively trying to protect them that I know of.
Short of those rangers that we were talking about earlier. Yeah, keep out, you know.
Well, that's protecting the populace. Because imagine if you knew that. I mean, we in Michigan here, for instance, we have cougars, mountain lions, and they were down in the lower states or in the lower Michigan back in the old days, and then they've been gone for possibly over 100 years. Well, they're back in this area. I've used to have them come in my camp, but the DNR will not say that they exist down here because it would scare the hell out of people and they wouldn't go out and camp
And they
and
want
use
the
those
visitors.
facilities and they'd lose
Yeah.
money and all that. So they keep it quiet. And the same thing with the Sasquatch. They don't want it to be known if they're in an area.
But they know it's there, clearly.
Yes, I have talked to them where they, yes, more than one in different areas that they said, yeah, they do exist.
Do you think they're basing that on just the collection of I don't know what they call it, anecdotes down the years that these things are real and potentially the
Oh no,
evidence?
they've
Or do you
seen
think
them.
they have secret evidence that
They
we
have
don't know
seen
about?
them. They have seen them
Okay.
themselves. So a few of the people I talked to have witnessed them. Because like the DNR here, a lot of them times they're walking literally in a straight line through the forest and they're marking trees and stuff to be logged out. And I had a ranger that literally walked right into one. Didn't even know it was there. Walked right into it.
Wow.
So yeah, they have encounters with them.
Now, this is just purely theoretical, but do you think there is a smoking gun of video out there, short of the Patterson Gimlin, which I think is real, but something even better than that that's just not come out yet? Just like the UFO tapes, you know, that don't see the light of day for years.
Well, I would think possibly because now everybody has their phones with the camera on it, so it's they're getting all just like in UFOs, they're getting all kinds of pictures now where
Hmm.
we never did before. So there probably is, but then again, is it going to be accepted? You know,
Hmm.
unless you were there and knew the circumstances, I can't say. I could look at it the way it moved and stuff, and it most likely looked that way, but without knowing more, I couldn't just say, yeah, 100% that's what you got.
Okay. Now you said this guy is one stealthy mofo. Now, does he smell? Or is it
He can, he can. I think it's kind of like similar to what a gorilla has. He has a gland that gives off that scent uh, for sexual reasons or defense reasons. If it gets anxious and nervous, I've been around him where I've smelled it, and I've been around him where I don't smell it because I'm not like a threat to it. Because when I go into their area, I don't have any weapons on me. I'm just out there on my own, camping right in their area. I show them respect, and I don't usually don't ever smell the smell out there. If I do smell anything, a lot of times it's black bear, because they eat a lot of uh, animals that were killed on the road or whatever, and they just that's that decay. They smell
hmm,
that sometimes, but you can usually tell. Sasquatch smells like similar to skunk rolled in garbage.
a beautiful, beautiful smell then?
Yeah, and there's probably more depth to it than that, but yeah, it can get pretty potent.
Best avoided. Now, before we move on to the next topic, which is demons, and this is the one that Nick recommended to you to me about
Oh,
was the demon side of
okay.
thing. But I did want to touch on Bigfoot because I love the topic. Let's branch into the slightly awkward side of it. And the first part is going to be: is there evidence out there in which a human has been attacked or survived an attack by a Bigfoot?
There are stories of such. I have never come across anybody that's ever been attacked by one. I have been in the environments where they could have easily killed me, and they did not. Um, I would put it this way: any anybody or any animal, if cornered and felt threatened, they're going to attack. I don't care what it is. Could be your
Sure.
grandmother. They're going to attack if they're cornered like that, you know?
Yeah.
And that would be the only reason. But find people and kill them and eat them, all these types of stories you hear, you know. A lot of the times in the Indian cultures, those were told to the children to keep them from going into those areas and staying away from the mountains and stuff for a
Yeah.
variety of reasons. It's very dangerous. So, but no, I don't see them that way at all.
No, that's fair. Have you heard of the chap called David Paulides
Yes,
and his
yes,
Missing 411 series? What do you
yes.
think of that? Does he? Because I know he's changed his mindset recently about what it was. Because he would never say it's this, all these missing people in national parks. So I don't know what he's actually gone with. Do you know his updated status
Uh,
and
geez,
is
I
it
read that
Bigfoot?
book like a long, long time ago. Um, I was just very curious about how they disappeared and how they reappeared again. There were some similarities there. I don't know what is going on with that. I've seen everything from Sasquatch to aliens or
Hmm.
maybe some other type of creature that lives in the wilderness, but I don't know where he's at with that.
No, no, fair enough. And so let's touch on this last bit before we move on. What do you think of the link between Bigfoot and UFOs? And I know it's a weird one, but where do you sit with that?
Well, gentleman by let's see, what's his name? Stanton
Stan
Fried
Gordon,
no,
you're probably going to say.
Stan Gordon. Yes, Stan Gordon.
Yes.
He's written quite extensively on it. I have the only time I remember some sort of a association was in the 70s when we had what we used to call UFO flaps, where we'd have like several weeks of UFO activity. And
Hmm.
at that time, and no other time, there were Sasquatch starting or sightings that were in the wilderness within that area like that. Uh, People had said seen them walked across the road, all that kind of stuff. That's the only time that I've ever come across anything that ties to that. I know there's a lot of people that believe that. The Indians call them the walkers between two worlds. Like they have this spiritual interdimensional aspect to them, but they also have the very physical aspect to them. But I haven't seen that. I mean,
Sure.
everything that I've seen where Sasquatch disappeared, I know that was backtracking or jumped several feet, to the right or left of its trail. And if you didn't look far enough out, you wouldn't even pick up on it. So they didn't disappear; they just maneuvered.
Yeah.
So
It's an
I'm
interesting
kind
one.
I'm kind of out now. I don't have any personal experience of that, so I can't really say anything more about it than that.
No, that's fair. It makes sense and goes with exactly the approach that you go with, which is, it's the scientific approach. It's likely pretty much going to be a flesh and blood creature.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great topic. I love Bigfoot. And by the way, sorry if you can hear explosions behind me. That's because it's fireworks night here, every 5th of November. So there's that going on. So let's look at the next topic, which is demons. Now,
Demons.
you've written a book, if I believe, called Demons: A Secular Look.
That's correct.
Could you tell us about the book and what drove you to write it?
Well, initially, I've been a ghost hunter for over 40 years. And I had a friend back around 2008, I think it was, where I met. And I was helping out, well, doing an investigation, a house he had ghosts in it. And in there, his girlfriend was talking about being raped by a demon. Now they're
Mm.
Catholic. And so my thought was, well, they're Catholic, they believe in demons, and that's where they go. And I did not believe in demons. I know ghosts can be very negative because what you are in life is if you become a ghost, that's what you are as a ghost. If you're a mean, nasty person, you're going to be a mean, nasty ghost. So she had a homework it started that she talked about, and I had the opportunity to investigate it. And when I did investigate it, that's when I had my first real run-in with the demonic. And this was a sex demon known as an incubus.
Hmm.
And demons in general travel in groups, gangs, I would say, like maybe on average, between maybe five to eight on average. There's more, can be more or less, but the uh, the smartest, it seems to be the most powerful one is the sex demons because there is only one, and they build this harem of women that it visits all the time. So she was just one of its victims, but there was a physical place where it usually hangs out, and that was her home. And so I went over there out of her courtesy. She put up for sale, and that's when I had a psychic with me. There's a whole
Hmm.
lot to it, but basically, what the book does is it chronicles my time where I got into it, made a discovery, and everything led up to where my friend was literally being killed by this thing. And I learned how to do what we call a binding. It's like the genie in the lamp that you can force it
Hmm.
into an inanimate object where it is imprisoned and can't get out. It's done with. Unlike the typical exorcism you see where it's expelled, but the question is, where's it go? And usually it comes back, or other things come in. But, anyways, so I discovered how to do that. And so that's all through the book. And then the last part of the book is where I started doing the analysis, looking into all the things I found out about it. I studied a lot of the old witch trials back in the 1500s, 1600s, the lawyers and all the research that they did, and then talk about the demons, and they made these, well, the demons, this, and this. And then I'd go down, I mostly worked out of Detroit. I had a lot down in there. And there, I was able to put it to the test to find out, does it really work that way? And found out, yeah, it does work that way. Not everything, but some things did. So they knew what they were talking about. And so that's what it is. It's just, taking the approach that I did, and I studied it. I'm looking at behavior. What about symbols? What about what are they repulsed by? And you think immediately, oh, the Christian cross, all that kind of stuff, but not necessarily. If you're not Christian, it's not going to have any effect at all. you know it only has an effect in the sense that, if you can look at it this way, when a demon starts taking you over, it's literally changing your brain chemistry, and it's kind of linking into you. And then when you bring up your religion, whatever, just holding a cross or something like that, it stimulates you, where you start breaking that bond to it, and breaks that connection. That's where the religion part comes in. Other than that, it has no effect. So these are the things that I experiment with throughout the book, and then I report what happens. I talk about the different kinds of demons that I've come across, and how they were looked at in history. It's not a religious thing. I mean, if you take it this way, if you're going up against an enemy, I am not going to use a religious dogma that's going to be, this is the way we see the world, when, like, well, the demons are out here doing this kind of stuff. You open yourself to being injured, if not killed, under those circumstances. So it's in every culture, it's in every religion. I deal with people from all walks of life, and that's basically what the book's about, how that all came about, and the conclusions I draw, and I give an example of how to do it, a binding that's done. And basically, it's just to let people know they're real, they are out there, and they influence our lives greatly, more than you think they do.
Well, it's a massive topic, and I'll ask some more specific questions in a second. But I'll link to your book in the description to this video. So I would suggest to everyone who's listening or watching, please go and check that out. So my first question is, and I'm going to start from a naive standpoint here. What are they exactly? What is it? What are demons?
Well, from the things that I've done over the years, I'm of opinion that they're okay. They're not fallen angels. They're not anything like that. They're not a race of beings that were here long before man was. What they are is I think they're a dimensional being of some sort, and they feed off our bioenergy. They feed off our emotions, and they're predators. So I would say they're a higher dimension, because some of the things that they're capable of, you can only explain like fourth dimension and above, what they're able to do. It's the only way you can
Can you give
explain
me
it.
an example of that, of what they're able to do then?
Well, they're able to, like, if they look at you, they could tell physically, like it's like you could look inside you. If you're in the fourth dimension, you could look inside me and you could see the organs. You could see maybe like, oh, there's something going on here or there's an injury there. They can see all that kind of stuff and they take advantage of it. Those are the sites that they attack, is those particular things. So, do you remember the Flatlanders? It was written in the 1800s. It was a two-dimensional place that the Flatlanders lived. They didn't have up and down.
It doesn't
They
ring a
just,
bell to me.
okay. So if you take like a sheet of paper, let's say,
Hmm.
and you live on this sheet of paper, so just for the sake of discussion, you can see forwards, you can look backwards, you can go forwards, backwards, side to side, stay in one spot, but you don't have a concept of up and down.
Hmm.
Now, if I brought an apple and I started penetrating that paper, you might see some little lines. And as it gets further down and it gets wider, you see wider and wider lines, but you're only seeing just segments of it that interact with that dimension, second dimension. As it passes all the way through and then it gets smaller again and disappears. You will never see it the way it really looks. Does this sound familiar when you talk about UFOs
I knew you
and
were going to
changing
say that.
UFOs?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's going on is they're moving through a dimension and you're not seeing the whole thing. You're only seeing. So because of this, our brain is not capable of seeing fourth dimensional space. I'm not talking about temporal time. I'm talking about fourth dimensional space. We can't comprehend that. So we in reality cannot see them for what they really are. We can't see them. Actually, what we see is hallucination. They create hallucination. And that's why to some people, they can be very beautiful beings and, friendly. And other times they're hideous, cross between an animal and a human or something of that kind of nature. Whatever's, whatever they need to do to manipulate you or to create fear, they can reach into your mind and create that image, but you're not really seeing them for what they are.
I was
Okay.
going to
I
say, yeah,
think if you
what would their natural state be? But that you've just literally said you wouldn't be able to see it,
No,
so no one
I
knows
think the
then.
closest thing that would get to it would be when you see those black amorphous things like in haunted environments and stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, usually when I see a ghost that's a shadow person, like there is a form to it, but there are these things that are like this black mass. It's not any particular shape. My wife, Dorinda, who hunts with me, she calls them smoke monsters, is the way she defines them. Because the way, but that's about the only thing you'd be like the apple going through the thing. That's a little slice. But the images that most people see are all hallucination because you can go into. I've been in environments where there's been three or four of us, and we all saw different things. You know,
Okay,
depending on what
so
our fears were.
interesting. So these are real things that are living,
Yes.
in theory, in a separate dimension that feed off us, feed off our energy.
Yeah.
And this, you
They
think it's as
live. They
simple as that?
live.
It's like an animal living off
They
another animal.
coexist with us. Okay. They coexist with us. They do, and they're predators, and they're very arrogant. They're very egotistical. So that's kind of to our advantage in a way because you can imagine if you took 10 of the most arrogant people you can think of and put them in a room and give them a project, you think it'd get done? That's the way they're
No.
structured. That's probably one of the reasons I'm alive because they can't get organized enough to do anything or have very good communication. So they're like what we have over here, like the motorcycle gangs. We have the gangs. It's just they're always trying to usurp the leader. They'll throw each other under the bus, all that kind of stuff. That's their nature.
Is there, or have we had any communication between those entities where they almost give us information about their existence, where they're from, what they do in normal life, that sort of thing?
Usually when I'm in the situation with them, I'm not really in a position to start having a chat with them, if you know what I mean. It's basically you're trying to, you got like this tiger got you by the ass and you're just trying to fight it off. So it's not like that. But I have used them. My wife Dorinda, she's a medium and she's really good and she can see and talk with ghosts and she can also see and interact with the demonic as well. And so, for instance, the demonic is very possessive. So, let's say that the demon had your girlfriend. Now, as far as it's concerned, that's its property. It owns it. Okay. Now, if I had its name, you have to have its name to be able to control it. It's kind of along the lines like working with a computer, like putting in a command line. You
Hmm.
put in that command line, you use that name, you use that key there, you can make it do whatever the hell you want. So I can bind it. I can make it come somewhere and I can bind it in an animate object where it stays there as long as I want it to. Okay. So now we know there's other demons there. So what's going to happen? If I get rid of this demon, these other demons are going to eventually move into position. They're going to figure out who's the boss, and they're going to start preying on your girlfriend again. Okay. It may be a couple hours, it could be a couple days. So, what I would do is I can sit there and knowing their nature, I use that as leverage. Well, I don't know what your girlfriend's name is, but I'll just say Carol. Well,
It is Carol.
is it really?
No.
All the way from there, I could feel you pulling my leg.
Yeah. Her name's Tiffany.
Okay, so what happens is that I would say, okay, look, I can bind you. I know your name. And I tell us its name. And I said, I can bind you. And I says, all these other demons are now your brethren are gonna take over. They're gonna get her. They're gonna get the house. And it's like, no, no, they can't have her. It's all mine. It's all mine, like that. Well, if you give me their names, then they're not gonna get anything. They'll go down just like you will. Wrap down every damn name of every one of them. And then I'll use that and take them all out. I've done that many times, but I have to have a psychic to do it. Sometimes I can hear them talk, but not always.
Now, how does your logical brain reconcile that? Because what we're essentially saying is that the power of a word, of a name, defeats this creature, this whatever, this entity. What sort of weird magic is that?
I don't know. I mean, it's something you're talking about an interdimensional being,
Hmm.
and I couldn't even comprehend. I've been puzzling over that. I mean, right now all I know is it works, so I use it and
Fair.
help people out. But aside from that, I've been puzzling over that and trying to come up with a reasoning for it. But it escapes me at this point. But it does work, and
Hmm.
uh, and they do a lot. It's funny because you have all these biblical names, these 72 demons and all that, and they don't use any of that stuff. They use names of the culture, which is common. They'll use inanimate objects. They'll make names up. If I do a lot with the Hmong. I don't know if you
Oh
know
yeah,
what the
yeah.
Hmong are. I
Hmm.
do a lot with them, and a lot of times the names of the demonic are Chinese names. You know,
Yeah.
um, so it just depends on the culture I'm in as far as what the names are. And once you have that, now I did an experiment a while back. I had a woman that was having a lot of issues with it, and she had this one particular demon. And I said, I'm going to do an experiment. What I want you to do, I'm going to randomly get a name, and I use the name Sol, S-O-L, Sol, the
Okay.
sun.
Hmm.
And I sent it to her, and I said, I want you to start calling it that name in your mind every time you interact with it. She could hear it talk and everything. So she started doing that. And then it's like it would say, "That's not my name." It's not my name. It's not my name. All this. It just kept uh, being very uh, rejecting it every time she said something. And I let this go on for a couple months. So it got to the point that it just got used to it and wasn't threatened by it because nothing happened. So it got used to it.
Okay.
And then when the time was right, then I summoned it and it came. And my wife was with me at the time that we did that. And she could talk and she was telling me it was pissed. What do you think? I'm your pet? That's not my name. Well, you're here. You came when I called. So I guess it's your name now. And I did bind it. So it did work. There is a way to come up with your own names and bind them if you do it properly, aside from knowing what their names are. And they do change their names. They have
Okay.
more than
So
one victim. They're just not one victim.
sure. So you bind this entity to an object.
Yeah.
Then what?
Then I take the container, I put it in a container, and then I just bury it or drop it into a deep lake somewhere and Leave it at that.
So
They're
there
they're
literally
they're
is the
in.
Aladdin story then,
Let me
essentially.
put it this way. Yeah, like maybe 1,000 years from now, I'll be long dead when they ever come back. So, you know, I'm not worried about
You're not worried about these little demonic bombs you're leaving everywhere.
it. No, no,
No.
they are inert, so there's no thought process, like in a coma, and they'll remain that way for a very long time. You got to be careful because they're very literal. So when you're dealing with them, and that goes along with the name thing, with the command, because you got to, when you command them, you've got to be very specific about what you talk about. You can't leave anything to the imagination at all. Very specific. So that's very important with them. And yeah, so they're in an inert state. And even if you found a container and you opened it up and all that, they would not, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't do anything. But
Okay.
there is a
Straight.
timetable on it.
Oh,
I
okay.
put it in years because they understand years. I have to be very specific. I don't say I'm going to send you up for an eternity or I'm going to send you to forever. I don't use terms like that. I use actual years, very specific. You know, and that's how I do it because I learned that you got to be literal with them. You get in trouble if you're not.
And what's your years of choice? What are you going with?
I usually go with about 1,500 years,
Okay. Any
something
particular
like that.
reason?
Arbitrary. I'm long dead. You know.
You're not going to live that long. Oh, come on.
No, I don't think so. I hope not.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
Otherwise, I'm moving to England
Yeah, you should. It's quite good
because they're
here.
all over the United States
Oh yeah. Well,
where I
we got
buried
enough of
them.
our own demons over here, probably. Now, a question.
Yeah,
You obviously can bind it to an object. Have you
yeah.
burnt it? Would that get rid of it forever, or
No,
it wouldn't?
no.
Okay.
Burning
Would
would
that be
not
a release
get
because
rid.
you're unbinding it from the object? Is that what that is?
Are you saying if you burn the object it's bound to,
Correct.
it
Yes.
would release it?
Yes. Cool. That's what I
It
was
would release it.
suggesting.
Yes, it would.
Okay. So that's
Not
that's
a
where
good
the
thing to
C
do.
comes in. Yeah.
Usually, the canisters I put symbols and things on, hoping if somebody happens to come across one, they will be smart enough to say, "I don't think I'll touch that." But today, I don't know.
Okay, now the name thing is interesting because I've heard this concept of binding with using the name a lot. Have you ever watched that program Supernatural
Oh, that TV series? Yeah,
TV
yeah,
series?
I've seen
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I probably got most of that sort of knowledge from. You know, that you bind it using the name, and obviously that's been documented down the years from like priests and all sorts of things, isn't it? You know, summoning it using
Yes,
a name.
the Catholics did a wonderful job with this. I mean, a lot of things they say
Hmm.
was very true. They just didn't take it far enough, you know. And they got these philosophical concepts that they utilize, and then you're going to go to hell, and like the demon's like, I don't know what your hell is. No
Yeah,
idea. I'm just going to hang out here till you're gone, and then I'm going to come back really pissed and start terrorizing the place.
which we
How many
don't
times you've
want.
heard about them coming in and doing blessings and things like that, and then all hell turns loose,
Hmm.
a couple days later.
Well, my question's going to be this on that sort of scenario. It's been around before. Did you take that back knowledge of how demonology works, or you know, all that sort of stuff works, or did you discover it yourself that the name worked?
Um, it's hard to say. I didn't really know much about it other than what you saw on television and movies, and didn't really think about it much. Uh, what happened, which gave me the idea, was that when I was doing in the book, it's the Tennessee case that I had. There was this particular doll that a guy found they were using for satanic rituals, and they were actually keeping demonic locked into these dolls where they were kind of tethered to them. And the guy cleaned it all up and gave it to his friend's daughter who hated it, threw it out, and it's a whole story's in there. But that gave me the idea, like, well, maybe these things can be bound to objects, and it was. But it was very limited what you could do. You could it was terrorizing the house, but if you took the doll, took it out of the environment, maybe took it like a mile down the road, and then it'd be gone because it can only it has a link whether that tether is, as far as it can go. I
Hmm.
bind it to the doll itself. Um, so I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, it kind of does because basically you said you sort of like separately came up with the same solution, which means it's almost a corroboration, isn't it? Anyway, because if there's
Yeah,
that down the years and then you find the same thing, there's got to be some truth in it.
right. And then you think about the genie in the bottle. Well, they were doing that for, long time,
Yes.
putting them into spirits into bottles. And there's lots of stories of that. And like I said, the Catholics, they discovered having its name. And of course, their process is very laborious, and it's hard on the priest. It's hard on the victim. I don't have to do any of that stuff. If you have the demonic, I can get rid of it over here in the United States. I don't have to be over there. My wife can talk to you and she can find out what's there, their names, and then I can do the bindings from there. And then you would see a tremendous change in your environment.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it works. I've
Does
done a
that blow
lot.
your mind as a scientific approach guy?
Well, it just tells me we don't know enough, do we?
Hmm.
We just
It's,
don't know enough. What do we know about other dimensions other than some mathematical models and
I
things
know
like
this
that?
much.
Yeah, well, so does a scientist.
Yeah.
They think it's there, I think we got these many dimensions, but the way to describe it, that's the kind of thing I'm seeing there. So same with ghosts. Do you think ghosts are they in another dimension? When they
Hmm.
died, because it's a very similar dimension. They can be very physical and very real, but then they can move through you know objects and things like that. I don't know. It's very similar.
Let's extrapolate this out a bit, right? If this knowledge that you have in your head, you would say you know this stuff exists, right? Because of what you've done and what you've
Right.
experienced. If What would you think would happen to the public at large if all of a sudden a download goes into everyone? By the way, demons exist. You live in a world where demons are feeding off you. Wouldn't that destroy society? What would happen, do you think? I know it's a weird question, but
I would I would think it would be people would believe it, people won't. They'd have to have some sort of personal experience. Unless you're talking from the authorities. If the authorities say
hmm.
it's so, then oh yeah, well it's got to be true, kind of thing.
Yeah, it has to
You
be.
know, it's just like with the UFO thing, same thing. We're trying our damnedest to get the authorities to admit that the things exist. We know
Hmm.
what they exist. There's lots of people that have seen them, had experiences with them. So, no, I don't think it'd be the end of the world. No, not at all. There's going to be people who are going to believe it and people that aren't going to.
I think that one would shift our brain more to worry than I think the UFO scenario would, because I think that's almost more palatable, the UFO thing. You know, I
Could
think,
be. Depends, I
yeah,
guess, on the culture.
mm,
I mean, other cultures, they believe in them. They know they exist.
yeah, and
I mean, the
there's
whole
truth
purpose
in
of the
all
book was
history and
just,
stuff.
look, they're out there. And from what I've seen of all the years I've been doing this is what they're like. This is what they do. This is what to expect. This is how to know they're around, that kind of thing. This
Yeah,
is how you get rid of them type thing.
mm,
And that was the purpose of the book. Because I can't bind every damn demon that's out there. I can only handle the people that come to me and that I can
sure,
help.
sure. Now, knowing that demons exist, then does
Okay.
that suggest that there's an equal and opposite balance to them, so that there is a light being, if you will, helping instead of hindering? Does that?
Why?
I don't know, but I just think
Is it just
with
because of your culture and religion and that? Because there's got to be light, there's got to be darkness, there's got to be that balance.
well, I always think nature is balance. I think there's balance in most things. Even in the universe, most things are
But
balanced.
you're talking about something that's possibly in another dimension. Maybe the
Yeah,
physics is different. Maybe a lot of things are different.
yeah.
Why in the hell can I use its name and control it?
I don't
What's that
know.
all about?
You tell me.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't even know if I'm capable of the answers. All I know is it works, and so I use it.
sure, sure. But you don't think there could be necessarily a light being to offset the dark, then, so to speak?
You mean like
It,
angels, that type of thing?
well, yeah. Let's just call it angels. It could be something else, but is there an equal and opposite reaction to the demon? Do you think?
I have seen no evidence of anything that combats them other than, exorcist or things that we do. Other than that, I don't know of anything out there that does,
Sure,
other than your faith. If you're very strong in your faith, that will help combat them. But I have not yet run into an angelic being or anything that helped me out, you know.
sure.
Even though I do, when I do my bindings, I have different rituals based upon the religion, whether it's Christian or Judaism or whatever it is. When I'm dealing with the Muslims, I'm dealing with the jinn
Hmm.
because that's their way of seeing it. They're still demons. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
They just have a different name for it. Um, yeah.
Have you got any cases of demonic possession or attacks that you could talk through, or is that all book related? Obviously, I don't want to give all of the secrets away to your research, but is there a small story you could give?
Um, yeah, I've done tons of cases. I'm just trying to think. I think the first encounter kind of gives you a little bit of flavor of all the different things. And by the way, they do give off a lot of electromagnetic energy. You know, if you had a K2 or something around,
Hmm.
you would the environment and the whole environment in the house would be much elevated to what's normal. I'm not sure what's normal over there. And here it's like zero point 0.2, zero point 0.3 milligauss. Over there, I don't know because you guys have you have a higher frequency for electrical and all that than we do over here. But anyways, yeah. So I went in and I was going to do this house on my own. So I'll just go in, I'll check this house out and just see what's there. There was a woman and a husband that was living there. The husband died on unusual circumstances. They don't know why or what he died from. And the woman was there by herself, very short period of time, and then she just got up and left everything behind.
Okay.
And so they put it up for sale after the last tenant left. Tried to find them to give their things back, and so that's when I went in. The place was pretty much all furniture and everything was gone out of the environment. So I was going to go on my own, but something kept telling me it's like, yeah, you better not do it on your own. And I was trying to get a Detroit paranormal group that I worked with. They had a really top end equipment, so I said, let's get in there and really take some measurements, see what's going on. So they were going to be delayed several weeks, and I was up against a time crunch, because they had it up for sale and it was a possible buyer, so I might not be able to get in there at that time. So I had a very good psychic that I worked with. This wasn't my wife, this is somebody that I knew beforehand that I worked with before. And we went into the environment and we had a hell of a time getting into the building. It had a lockbox in it, and I got the key out, but every time I'd unlock the door, it relock itself. I'd unlock it, relock itself.
Oh,
I did this
weird.
for like 30 freaking minutes, and then it threw the deadbolt, and I didn't have a key for the deadbolt. And later on, luckily, I remembered I had another key that he gave me, and it worked on the back door, and that's how I got into the environment. The psychic that was coming, she knew where the place was, but she drove by it in the fog and ended up got herself lost in the town next to it. And she called me up and says, I don't know how this happened. I can't seem to find a place. I had to talk her back till she finally showed up. So at that point, she says, when we also got in, we brought our equipment in. She says, there's something here, but I don't know what it is. It's masked. I don't know what it is. And at that time, I had a crucifix that was, God, it must have been 9 inches long, and it was made out of iron. It was a twisted iron for the cross, and it had a Christ figure on it and was welded to it. It was all iron, very heavy, big long
Okay.
thing. And it was blessed by the Pope. They had gone to the Vatican City and had it blessed. So the guy says, "Would you please take that with you?" And I said, "Sure, I'll take it." And so we got into the environment, and we went up to the upper floor. What was that feeling was very strong, but there was no talking. We weren't picking up anything. And I mean, usually, if you've ghost hunted, ghosts, they're very busy bodies and they're going to talk. You're in there, they're going to talk your ear off. So that wasn't the situation at all. As we got in there, um, she started describing the attacks where the woman would go to bed and then this thing would descend from the ceiling on her, and then it would rape her. And the boyfriend had witnessed this, and for some reason he was sleeping in another room in that house, which later on, if you learn about sex demons, that's what happens. It separates the people. And he heard two distinct voices at that time. So she was describing that. She knew nothing about that. So I'm standing there with her, and I said, this sounds like an incubus. And boy, you could feel the energy in that room spike. I mean, everything just went off the charts. And the woman got into a panic, and she's yelling at me. She goes, "You found out what it was. You guessed it. You guessed it. It's going to kill you. It's going to kill you." And she's holding the crucifix, and she says, "What it's going to do, it's going to push you off that railing to the floor below. It's what it's going to do." And I thought, no, it's not. It's going to stab me in the heart with that crucifix, which would be a very ironic death, you know.
Mm.
And so she's standing there looking at me, and I'm backing away, and I see this change in her face, like a flash of something else other than her, which startled me. And she was trying to get it under control, and she's holding this Christ figure in this metal hand that's all welded. I heard it go pop, and she's holding it flat in her hand, and it dropped to the floor. And I'm like, how in the hell can you do that? It's impossible. She just had her hand flat and that thing just popped off. And then it started talking. And it was saying that the holy water, the cross is not going to save you. It's not going to help. It's not going to do anything. And so we started off a conversation with it and got it to calm down. And then later on, the book's got more detail than this.
Sure.
Basically, it wanted us to go to the basement. I want you to go to the basement. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
sounds a
don't think
bit
we're going to do
trappy
that.
to me.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that smells of a big trap. So I told her, I said, you know what? We don't know what we're dealing with here. And I'd like to get another group in here to, see what they can find. I says, let's get out of here because this is really, there's something bad's going to happen. So we go down into the kitchen area. Now, I come in the back door. So you can imagine you go in the back door. You got like a little landing that drops down maybe about 6 inches or so. And then it has a short stairs that go into the basement. Now,
Okay.
the basement is where the power is. This thing seems to feed off electrical energy as well. Why does it want us in the basement? Now, the previous owner was telling me all kinds of stuff happening, couches that weighed hundreds of pounds, levitating across the room, all kinds of stuff down there in that basement. So it's whatever it is, it's like an energy source it's feeding off. So I'm standing there getting packed, and she comes downstairs, and she's like in a trance, and she walks right by me, and I'm like, "Where are you going?" And she walks up to the edge of the landing and literally starts falling forward. And I reached out and I grabbed her by the collar and I pulled her back. And just as I did that, this black amorphous thing started forming at the bottom of the stairs, and it turned into what you guys would call a shuck, like a black shuck. It had bright eyes, it was very tall, and it started coming up the stairs. You could hear it creaking, you could smell its fall breath. I saw it, she saw it. I grabbed her and pulled her into it. Once I did that, it never came up into the room. It just, whatever it was, that's as far as it went. Scared the hell out of us. And she was screaming. It knows what scares me. It knows what scares me. Now, her family is from the British Isles. Um, I don't know if you ever heard of the Fox sisters.
No, again, it doesn't ring a
They're
bell.
the ones
Sorry.
that started the psychic thing in the 1840s here in the United States.
Right.
Her family lived next to them. So they were, she knew all this stuff. She's very, very psychic. And she was telling me that she knew these dogs, these harbingers of death. She's seen them before, and they scared her. It reached into her mind and created that image. And it was so powerful that I was seeing it as well as she was. But at the time, it didn't look like a hallucination. It had all the elements. You could smell it. You could hear the weight. You could hear the panting, everything as it was coming up those stairs. And then it just was gone. So we said, come, we got to get out of here. So we were able to get out, and we had separate cars, and she says, we got to go get some coffee and talk this out. This is just crazy.
Hmm.
So the first place we went, like about a mile away, we pull in and went up to the window to get something. And they said, oh, we can't serve you. All of our computers crashed. So we can't get you anything. And she's in there going like, you got to go further. It's still influencing us. You got to go further. It's like it had command of electricity. So we took off a couple miles down the road. We pulled into a McDonald's. And the first thing I did was I drove into the parking lot. All the power went out of the whole restaurant and that just that isolated area. It's not far enough. It's not far enough, she yelled. We drove another 20 miles before we were able to get away from what I would say, is the influence of it. It appeared to be the influence of it. So that kind of ended that night. There was a lot of other things in it that's in the book, and I did get the group in there, and they came in, and they were getting real high EMF, and they said he finally determined that I don't know, maybe the ground to the electrical coming in isn't grounded, maybe it broke something, but you're getting a lot of EMF. So I'm just calling it a wash. It's just nothing. We can't do anything here. So at that time, I told him, I says, because I knew it was an incubus at that point, and I knew it preyed on women. And I says, do not bring your wife. Do not bring your wife. He brought his wife. So she came, and we're all down in the basement area and walking around. I'm with the psychic mostly, and they're setting up equipment and cameras and things. And the wife disappeared. And I'm walking up the stairs with the psychic, and I says, what happened to Carol? And
Yeah.
she's like, I don't know. And I started thinking about it. And I says, that damn thing's hunting. It's got her somewhere. So we rushed upstairs where nobody was, went around the corner, and that woman is sitting on the steps, like in this euphoria. She's just waving back and forth. And I called everybody up, and we used the um, K2 and honor, and I mean it went bonk. It just went off scale. And the woman, the psychic touched her, and you could literally see electric arc when she touched her. And she says, "Oh, you know, she's listening to." She says, "This is bad. It's bad. It's got her really good." And I'm talking to her, and I some of this film I sent to a news station that showed it many years ago, blocking out the faces and all that. And she was in a very much in a euphoria, and that's what it does. Once it attacks, it gets in this euphoric thing, and then
Hmm.
it flips you where it rapes, you know. And I remember the husband he didn't know what the hell to do. I mean, you know, he was a nuts and bolts guy, and this was just like he didn't know what to pack everything up. We're getting the hell out of here, you know. And we're trying to get her off the stairs, and we move her into the kitchen, and she's just swaying back and forth, you know. And she says, "There's nothing malicious about it. This is a wonderful feeling." And the guy's asking, "What's it going to do?" And I said, "It's going to rape her. Is what's going to do." And he says, it's not going to do that in front of us. Are you kidding me? I'd probably get off on it. What are you talking about? And the other thing that was really interesting, I'll bring up real quick here, was that when I was talking to the woman, he said that this other lady that was there, I told you about, the husband died. She's being raped by this thing. And there was others that were being raped by the thing. And she said that they wanted more. They enjoyed it, wanted more. And I said, well, who would want to get raped? You know, violently
Hmm.
raped like that. And so then it dawned on me, it's the euphoria. They get addicted to the euphoria. It's not the rapes, the euphoria that addicts them. So she's in that state. I gave her a cross because I said, "What are you?" She said, "Well, I'm a Christian." So I gave her the cross. When I gave her a cross, all of a sudden she drops it and says, you know, like I thought, you know, thinking Hollywood would burn her hand, you know, or something like that.
Hmm.
And it didn't. She's felt a sharp pain in the left side of her uh, uh, brain, left side of her brain, the logical part. It was like it was being shut down. The emotional part was being amplified. So when it raped, it had a tremendous amount of energy that would feed off from. And when I gave that, as I told you, there is some sort of a chemical process that's being done to the brain that's changing it, just like when you listen to music. And it interrupted that and broke the the uh, the connection that it had to her. And she was getting like a real severe headache and dehydration, which is very much associated with the demonic. You get that dehydration. So we got her out of the environment, and we drove many miles away, and we're in a parking lot. It's after midnight. There was, I don't know, probably about eight of us. And I said to her, I said, knowing what you know, that you'd be raped, would you go back there? And she says, in a heartbeat. If you could produce what that thing did to me, you'd be a billionaire. You'd probably be a trillionaire. That's
Hmm.
how addictive it was. And so that's the first encounter I had with it. Much more detail in the book, what happened, and you know, just give you an idea.
It's a wow story. I'll be honest. But my first question to you is, why the bloody hell did you go back in there?
I have to know knowledge. I'm
That's fair,
studying
but
this. I'm
that would
studying
put
it.
the that would put one hell of a fear up you, wouldn't it? Having seen
Yeah,
that
well,
smoke
yeah, but
monster or
beginning
whatever.
wise, like I said, I didn't believe in demons, so that was kind of my little
Hmm.
protection thing, you know. But as I got more and more into it, and I saw what this thing could do, you know, I still needed to get somebody in there to, and that's why I said, leave your wife at home. Don't bring any females. Leave them out.
Hmm.
But you know, you never listen, so here you go. And I caught that all on video, but I don't know if I still have it. I sent it out to somebody and I never got it back.
No, that's fair. I just you're very brave for going back in, whether that's
Well, I
the
wasn't
search for
alone. I had
knowledge.
others with me.
Yeah, I know, but still, having
All
seen
I had to
something
do was
creeping towards
all I
you.
had to do was outrun them.
Oh God, or push somebody else in. That's right. Yeah, I know what
Yeah,
you mean.
here, deal with it.
Jesus, that would scare the hell out of me. I don't think I would be brave enough to go back in. So fair play to you. At least there are people out there that do that sort of work. Go in and help resolve. How many demons down the years do you think you've binded and dealt with?
Since 2020, my last count it was a little over 2,000,
Whoa.
somewhere around there.
So
Don't
this.
forget they're in gangs.
Oh,
They're
okay.
they're
So
in
yeah,
gangs. So
multiples.
one person, and then when you and that was a nice thing I loved about dealing with the sex demons. When I took them out, all their harem becomes free immediately. And I had a chance to be able to have 3 or 4 people that were part of that harem that was able to study and see how it all, dispersed once that thing was gone, how it all changed everything.
Well, do then those that harem, the other ones, do they then say, well, "Why the hell did you do that?" Because I was experiencing that euphoria, and now it's gone, and now I feel
A
empty.
lot of times, I know I never met a lot of them. Most of them were, it was, I mean, once they're free of it, it's disgusting to them, the whole thing.
Good.
It was very much draining them of life over time, you know. Have you seen some of these people and what they looked at that time and how many years they've been victims of that?
Hmm.
So, and like I said, the fear's kind of squelched when you look at, they don't care if you're a child, a baby, an old woman, an old man, a young person. They don't care. Anybody can be a victim. So, and they have nowhere to turn. I mean, these people, even the churches won't help them. So that's when I get called in.
No, fair, good. At least someone's doing the work. That's quality. Um, is there a demonic agenda, or is it literally just what you said? It's a predator feeding. That's it.
That's what I believe.
Okay.
They have a great hatred towards man. And I finally figured out. I have friends that are psychologists and psychiatrists, and I was talking to one day. I was trying to figure this out, this hatred, and then it dawned on me. Think about it. Here you got something that's superior to you. So I'm the demon. So I'm superior to you in every way, and I'm very arrogant. You're like a pissant to me. But, but
Well played for using
if
that
you
term.
know my name, if you know my name, you can bind me. You can do that. Wouldn't that not be a source of hatred? I hate you because you can control me and I'm superior to you. Do you
Yeah.
get the psychology there?
Yeah, I do.
That's why I believe there's such hatred for mankind.
It's a
They've been
weird
with us
one.
a long, long, long time.
So, is there an end game?
For who? For them?
Well, for them, for us.
For them, I guess it's just that's what they do. They feed on us. They make our lives miserable. They got to create the worst case scenarios, all the negativity. I honestly believe that we remove the demonic totally out of our existence, that it'd be a much better world. There'd probably be less wars, less hate crimes, less a lot of things, murders, that type of thing. Because what do you
Yeah.
have an affinity for? Whatever you do, they take advantage of that and help evolve that, become a serial killer or murder somebody or whatever.
All the good stuff. Yeah.
All the good
No.
stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Do
Other
you
than
think
that, yeah, they just there's no end game. It's just the way it is. It's like any animals in the wilderness, lions, all that kind of stuff. They're not.
if it is like that, and then they're
Yeah.
just like lions in the wilderness and stuff, does that mean? Do you think there's X number of them that they could be eradicated, and therefore humanity is into?
Oh, I'm sure it's finite. I don't think it's infinite. I'm sure it's finite, but I could not tell you how many. I have no way to know.
No, no, that would be impossible. But I was just wondering. Interesting. Mental. Last question on this. Because I. Oh no, I've got two questions. Ouija boards. This is another one my girlfriend wanted to know. Ouija boards and demons. Is there a link, or does Ouija
Could
board
be,
for ghostly?
could be. You got to realize when you're using the Ouija board that you're opening up things. You're opening up portals. You're inviting things in. You got to remember to close it down. Whatever you're doing, you've got to close it all down and disperse whatever's there. but a lot of people do it at fun and games at parties. And then guess what? You brought something in, but it may be 11 weeks from now before it shows up. And they're like, why is this happening to me? And no memory of it. So yeah, you can bring them in that way. Sure.
Okay, so you like that
If you use it
answer.
wrongly.
Yeah, I'm not going near the thing, but there you go. And then the last question on this overall demon topic, and I think you've almost answered this one anyway, but I need to ask it, which is there really a good versus evil war going on?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
That's a very religious view.
Yeah, it is.
I don't see it that way. I just see that these are just existing beings that feed on us. It's like, bacteria, viruses, all that stuff. They're just doing their thing. We just happen to be the food.
Yeah, I don't want to be food, by the way.
We're on the lower food chain. But, they got to keep us alive and stuff. I mean, there are some that will kill, but mostly they just to make your life miserable. And yeah, it can get really bad. It can get really bad.
How awful to think that something out there is literally alive, so to speak, to cause
Yeah.
damage. That's a horrible
Yeah.
thought, isn't it?
And their protection is that they don't want you to believe in their existence. That's their strength.
Hmm. Well,
That's nonsense. That's old. That's back in the dark ages, medieval times. That's just nonsense. Oh yeah, they love you to believe that because then they can do what the hell you want. And you'll never figure out what's going on.
hmm.
You'd be
Well, now,
surprised the number of cases that, like in the mental institutions and stuff, probably is demonic.
yes,
But we'll
yes.
never know.
No, of course, there's no way to know because it's not quantifiable, I suppose, unless you've got like an
It
army of
is
yous.
if you could get the buy-in of the people that the scientists and the physicians and that. I mean, I was close to that. I had a psychiatrist I worked with for a while. And so when I was in the field and I would describe the people who did have some sort of a mental disorder. And by the way, if you do have a mental disorder, things of that nature, you can still be a victim of the demonic because remember, they prey on the weak. If you're
Hmm.
not mentally strong, they can take advantage of that. Alcoholism, drug addiction, all that stuff gives them an open field to do what they want. So, and he thought it was like, well, it's placebo effects. What's happening here? And I said, no, it's not because I don't do any rituals in front of them. I don't tell them when I'm doing it. I just go and do it, and then I check on them, and they're saying, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, everything stopped. I feel great, and all this stuff. So, and that kind of blew his mind, and he just had no answer for it. And so eventually he just decided like I'm out of here and he just walked away from it.
This topic is now endlessly fascinating to me. You're the first person I've spoken to on it, and I need to investigate more. So thank you for opening the doorway. I'm not going to go into these places and see smoked stuff and that, so I'm not that brave. But thank you for at least enlightening me. Now I suggest everyone who's listening to this go and check out the book. Um,
Thank you.
we mentioned this earlier: UFOs and aliens.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Real? Not
Well,
real? I mean,
well, I started back in April back in the day, and I was in it till a little bit after '69 when the Condon report came out, and they said it's not a threat. We're not going to be chasing these things anymore. It's Air Force officially closed the doors on it. Da da da. And then MUFON was kind of in its infancy around mid '70s. I joined in think it was 76 or 77. And at that time, there was just me and one other guy that was investigators in the whole state of Michigan when it first started
oh
out.
wow.
So, um, my thought on, and that was a nuts and bolts organization at that time. What's physical? There was none of this psychic stuff. We didn't, we steered away from abductions, that type of thing. My thought is that it's a big mistake. Look into the authorities to confirm what's being said, what's in the skies, et cetera, et cetera. Forget that. Do our own work. That's why you got all these organizations. They're not getting the answers. So they're looking for answers themselves. And I think if we would have focused on that instead of chasing all this government stuff, we'd be a lot further along today than what we are. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we are being visited by alien races. Yes, we are. Absolutely. I worked on, you ever hear of the transcription project with MUFON?
Oh
I don't
yes,
know if
where you're
anybody,
taking all the old archives and then putting everything online. That one.
no. This is
Oh, okay.
where psychologists around, therapists around the country ran into abduction scenarios, and they worked with the patients and stuff, and they recorded all the stuff, and then it was transcribed and eventually put into a database.
Okay.
And I was involved with that, so I spent a lot of time talking and getting involved in families of abductees and all that stuff around Michigan, for several years. And yeah, it's very real. It's very real. And I mean, that's my take on it. I don't.
No, and I'm with you. I 100% think it's real. There's just too much out there. It can't be ignored.
Oh God, yes, it's all over the world. That's not just
Yeah.
there. And who knows I mean, there's tremendous amount of evidence we probably never see. We'll never see, and they'll deny
Yeah, till
to
those
the end. They
bloody
will
cows come
never.
home. It's always till the
Yeah,
cows come
they're
home.
never, ever, ever going to come out and say, why do we have to sit around and wait for them to say, yeah, it's real? Oh, geez, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Nah, this is roll up our sleeves and get to work. We know they're out there.
Mm,
There wouldn't be all these organizations if that was the case. Worldwide, not
completely agree.
localized. It's not regional.
Yeah. I hope in my lifetime, and I'm coming up not far off 50, I hope before I pass away that there is some like, oh, by the way, here it is on TV. This is Gary from whatever dimension or whatever. And I hope to God I see that. And when I say God, then, by the way, I'm not religious, by the way, but you know what I mean.
You don't want one to show up in your
No,
house?
no, don't go there. Because
That'd
weirdly
be
enough,
even
right?
better.
I don't know. I'm so mentally intrigued by it, which is what drove you back into those houses. But I gotta admit there is some slight fear involved with the whole abduction
Sure.
thing and myself, because I believe that I might have done before because I've seen them in dreams and stuff, and it that frightens me a little bit if I'm honest.
Well, when you think about it, you think of a child, this is your bedroom, this is your safe place.
Yes.
But you know what? There really are things that are under the bed. There really are things that are in the closet. There really are things that, come in the night and take you.
Do you know what it used to be in my young days? What was under the bed? Spiders. It was always spiders, and I
Spiders.
hate spiders. Yeah, that was always what was
Well,
there.
they do have the insectoids, but that's an arachnid. So
Yeah, I don't want
cool.
to see a big one of them things. I'm going to branch into a question that I ask every person I interview. Now, you've already given some strange things that have happened to you, but is there another strange thing that's happened to you in your life apart from demons, apart from anything Bigfoot related? It could be a weird person in your life. It could be anything. Just a weird story, something very strange.
Hmm. Jesus, so much. I can't think
Pick
of
just
anything.
any random one that you think is a weird story.
Let's see. Hmm. I would probably have to say probably UFOs.
Okay.
There was I know you've heard of the shadow people.
Yes.
Now, there's not really clear definition on this because you see shadow people as ghosts too, but they're more kind of one dimensional, flat, like cut
Hmm.
out of cardboard. These things are three dimensional. And I do think they're, again, interdimensional beings. And when I was a MUFON, I had first encounter with one through a gentleman that had um, been seeing these. And I was over his house doing an investigation and actually had witnessed one in the backyard. And it was dark, it was in the country, but he could see from the ambient light from the house. And it's like you could see like a hat, you could see like it had clothes on, but you couldn't see any details. You couldn't see the face or anything like that. And you could see it move when it moved sideways. You could see it was three dimensional. And then it just dissipated. And from that, I ran into some other individuals that had run ins with these things. I don't think they had anything to do with, like, let's say the Greys are a very popular group that takes people. They don't seem to have anything to do with them or the UFO abduction thing in general, but there seems to be an interest on their part. And the weirdest one that I remember was in this home. There was two girls there. One was 10, and the other one I think was 7. And it was Christmas time, and they had the Christmas tree up. And the older girl was going up to use the bathroom and noticed it standing there by the Christmas tree. And it was just standing there looking at it. And the lights were off. There was nothing on. It was looking at it, kind of touching things. And then it became aware of her and saw her, and she froze in the spot, and it walked down, got right to where she was. She says, I couldn't see eyes, nose, or anything. I could see the form, but it was, it wasn't that detailed. And then it just went boo to her and leaped up and went up through the ceiling into the attic and disappeared. But the weirdest part was when it returned a couple days later, it was in the bedroom. She was asleep. She woke up and saw it standing there, and she sat up, and it walked, rather than going out through the door, it went up to the wall to the bedroom. And if you can imagine grabbing air like it's a fabric and ripped it open where it's nothing but blackness and stepped into it, and then it snapped back together.
That's one hell of an image.
That blew my mind. That was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. I don't know. What are they? Weird black hat man things.
I don't know. They seem to be shadowing the alien agenda, whatever it is. They're not part of it, but they're definitely. And I don't know if they can be trusted. I don't know if they're dangerous. I don't know. Some guy wrote a book on it. He collected some information. I don't remember the author, but yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay, thank you for that one. Now, we are now entering the Koit zone. Koit zone!
Oh.
Now, in the Koit zone, I'm going to ask you some random questions. They could be anything on any topic. Some of them are jokey, so just please bear with. It's all meant in good jest. So, first question, British or American chocolate?
Well, I've never had British chocolate.
You're missing out.
I've been to London, but I've never had chocolate.
Next time you're in England, if you ever get to come over, have a Cadbury's Dairy Milk. Magical.
Okay. I'll do that.
They are amazing. Okay. What was the last concert you went to?
Oh, God. REO Speedwagon.
Oh, crikey.
County Fair. Yeah, probably back in the 80s. That was the last one.
They did what? Keep on Loving You, didn't they? Then
I don't remember what they had. Oh, the one about the storm.
I can't remember what it's about, but I know they've Keep on Loving You.
I haven't heard them in years.
Night or day?
Night.
Okay. Best ever cinema experience?
Oh, that's a hard one. Best cinema experience. But the only thing that comes to mind right away was the original Andromeda Strain. I really loved the way that was put together and the action, and it just kept you on the edge of your seat the whole time.
That's a movie I've not seen in
ages. Michael Crichton wrote it. Yeah.
Done some good
original.
Films. Yeah. Never remakes. Favorite time of the year?
Halloween.
Really? So
yes.
Have you just had a great Halloween then?
Yeah, we had an okay Halloween. I mean, nothing fantastic, but yeah, I like Halloween. I just in this area here, we have a lot of the changing the colors of the trees and beautiful sunsets, and so it's very atmospheric. I like Bradbury. I'll read the Halloween tree. Just get in the mood.
Fair play. I know Halloween's massive in the States versus here. It's not that massive here, but
it's not as what it used to be. But yeah, it is. Not like when I was a kid.
How many trick-or-treaters did you get? Is it a shed load?
0.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They have a new thing now where they call trunk or treat, where they go to a parking lot and have several cars with trunks full of candy and they pass out candy. That's what it's gotten reduced to.
Trunk or treat. I've not heard of
that.
Yeah,
I was very disappointed on my way into work the next day. I didn't see any toilet paper in the trees. I didn't see any eggs anywhere. No smashed pumpkins. It's like, what's the world come to?
Yeah, that's disgraceful. It's got to be.
It is disgraceful.
Next one. What were or are you really good at?
I would say probably analysis.
Oh, good.
I mean, my profession is IT.
Ah, okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
analysis, and I do it all the time on everything. Break it all down, figure out how it works.
I try and do something similar, but not with how things work in a engineering sort of way, but just in terms
Yeah,
of thoughts and stuff. Um,
yeah.
is a strange one. Do you have a favorite pair of underpants?
Uh, no,
You are a
no.
man after all. That normally works. Okay.
Whatever I
If
happen to
you
grab.
if you knew the world would end tomorrow, what would you do on your last day?
I guess I would grab a chair, get some popcorn, and enjoy the view.
Oh yeah, see how it goes down.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember the story with Thomas Edison? You know who he is?
I know who he is. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And he had a big research lab. He had tons, millions of dollars into it, and it burned to the ground. And he called his wife up, and the kid says, "You got to come over. You got to come over." He says, "You're never going to see a fire like this ever again." That's
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 harsh.
that's the way I feel about it. I mean, what the hell are you going to do? You
Yeah,
might as well sit down and watch it.
yeah. True. I like that answer actually. I got a dream expert lady coming on next week, and
Uh-huh.
I'm interested. Therefore, what recurring dreams have you had, or do you still have?
I used to have recurring dreams in the spring about tornadoes all the time. And then over the years, it dissipated and I never got them again. And that's the only thing I can think of that's reoccurring.
No, that's
And that's
fair.
been that's been long ago.
Did you ever work out what it was and what you solved to then stop it recurring?
Well, it was always in the spring and that, so I imagine it was a fear, of a tornado. We just recently had one where I used to live that went through there and damaged a tremendous amount of things, killed a few people. And so I don't know what the fear was with it because I like storms. I used to chase storms all the time. So I've seen tornadoes
Yeah,
a few times. So I don't know what exactly it was that I was trying to work through, but eventually it dissipated after a few years.
cool, cool. I'm going to pass that one on next week and see if there's anything she knows on that
And I
subject
was
of
young at that
tornadoes.
time too. So I would probably been teenager or maybe early 20s. I might have been in high school or college at that time. I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. Um, best way of cooking an egg.
I prefer to fry them.
Now, can I ask you a supplementary question? Are you a
Sure.
crunchy or runny egg?
Um, I don't like you mean runny as far as the
The
whites?
yolk. No, the yolk.
Yeah, I don't like
We can't
oh
have
the
runny
yolk. Yeah, I
whites.
like yolk to be I can eat it either way, but I prefer the yolk to be runny.
Excellent.
If you take some toast and put some fried eggs on it and then cut it up and then it all soaks in with it. And by the way, I did have your banger and beans and I loved it
Excellent. Good.
when I was over there. Oh,
Yeah.
I said, these guys know what they're doing.
I had that this morning myself.
Ah,
Tiff, there's one from my column. She likes them crunchy and I like them runny. Do you have any pets? And if so, what are their names?
well, I have my wife has her dog. Its name is Karma, and she's a Maltese. And
Ah.
right now she's about 15 years old. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, she's very old,
An old lass.
partially
Um,
blind.
is the last one in this section before I ask
Mhm.
one more question, which is tell me a funny story from your school days if you remember one.
Oh, school days. See, you're making it hard on me because I'm going to be 70 next spring. I got a lot.
I apologize. Well, the thing is, right? Most people I speak to seem to have like a memory 10 times better than mine. So I think on the basis that I'm the dodgy one.
Oh, geez, I can't, at the top of my head, I can't think of anything.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that one. But the last question I'm going to ask in this Koit section, because something behind you has made me ask this question. Tell me about that mask. You knew I was going to ask about that, didn't you?
That mosque is from Nepal. It's a demon. And I actually got it in, let's see, where was I? Uh, I believe it was Rhode Island. I got it from Rhode Island a couple summers ago. I was visiting a friend, and they had a lot of this type of artwork from there. So, you know, he
Fair
protects
play.
me. He protects me.
He's a nice striking look, that one.
Yeah.
Um, Right, so thank you. That is the end of the Koit zone. Two final questions. So the first one of those is, what else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities or guilty pleasures?
Well, I write. I'm working on a screenplay. My genre is horror.
Ooh,
I do some acting. I just got done doing a French documentary film just last weekend in Detroit on demons, which I wrote the segment for. Um, a little bit into radio and electronics. Um, you can see biochemistry, all that kind of stuff. It's in the
yeah.
sciences. I have a lot of interest in there. Um, Reading, that's a big thing with me, that kind of thing.
No, fair play. And the last question then is, what are you currently working on?
I'm currently working on linking up to the NOAA satellites. So I'm getting imagery down to my PC. I'm working on that right now. I have demon cases because I'm actively still doing the demon thing. So I've got a demon case week after next. Actually, I got two. That's still ongoing. Um, I got a little electronics project going, and I'm in the middle of doing. I just finished up my Bigfoot book and got the proposal together. So I'm looking for a publisher for that, and I'm getting ready to start on my next book, which will be on ghost that I've done for many, many, many years. People might not like my version of what I think ghosts are, but nevertheless, it's coming out. Hopefully, um,
Yeah.
you can't please everybody.
No.
Um, yeah, I have a different perspective on it than a lot of people do. My name of my group used to be called the Ghost Research Center, and I worked a lot with psychologists. Who used to turn a lot of cases over to me where they knew it was supernatural, and so that's about it. That's what I'm working on. Variety of things.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Hopefully, and if you're up for it, at some stage in the future, I'll have you back to talk on about ghosts, if that's okay. And maybe we could
Sure,
talk about your book when you release the Bigfoot book as well, because,
sure,
see how that
sure.
goes down. But I want to say a massive thank you for you to come on. It's much appreciated. I think you've enlightened me on a number of things today. And if I get anything out of the stuff, I love it. And you've given me a
Okay,
lot. So much
okay.
appreciated.
And I'll gather that stuff up and send it to you.
Oh, magic. All right. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.